Can diplomacy and multilateral negotiation truly prevent a wider war in the Gulf when every move unfolds under the shadow of military escalation and deep-seated rivalries? In May 2026, the world watched as Washington and Tehran approached the brink, caught between high-stakes negotiations and the ever-present threat of renewed conflict, all with the Strait of Hormuz, the beating heart of global energy flows, at stake. Hopes surged when President Trump announced he would review Iran's ceasefire proposal. He called the odds solid 50-50, a coin toss between war and peace. At the center were Gulf mediators, Egypt, Pakistan, Turkey, and Qatar, each maneuvering to broker a deal that could reopen the strait and address Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile programs. Pakistan's top general Asim Munir met with Iran's president and foreign minister in Tehran. Qatari delegates pressed for breakthroughs. The talks focused on a 14-point Iranian peace plan, raising the specter of sanctions relief and unfrozen assets. Yet the optimism was brittle. The ceasefire, forged in early April to halt fighting and allow negotiations, remained shaky. The Strait of Hormuz, a lifeline for 20% of the world's oil, was still mostly closed. Both sides eyed each other warily. Intelligence indicated Iran retained about 60% of its missile and drone stockpile. The U.S. and its allies worried that any misstep could trigger a regional firestorm. Israel, facing continued threats from Hezbollah, made clear it would act decisively to defend its security interests. Prime Minister Netanyahu signaled intensified operations in Lebanon, stating Israel would intensify strikes against Hezbollah and maintain heightened vigilance along its borders. Tensions reached a boiling point on May 26 when U.S. airstrikes hit southern Iran. U.S. Central Command described these strikes as defensive, targeting missile launch sites and boats attempting to lay mines to prevent further aggression. Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps reported losses, including 4 troops killed, but refrained from immediate retaliation. Iranian officials condemned the strikes as a definitive violation of the ceasefire, yet kept the door open to continued talks, a calculated move reflecting both resilience and caution. As the world digested the news, Brent crude oil prices surged beyond $100 a barrel, underscoring how any flare-up in the Gulf reverberates instantly across global markets. The fate of more than $12 billion in frozen Iranian assets and the possibility of sanctions relief became bargaining chips in a contest where economics and security were inseparable. The U.S. insisted that any agreement must guarantee free passage through the Strait of Hormuz for all commercial shipping, while Iran sought to retain strategic control, proposing joint management with Oman and potential navigation fees. Western negotiators, led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, kept channels open but warned that the strait would open one way or another. Diplomacy pressed on, even as both sides traded accusations and prepared for contingencies. Iran's leadership required that a ceasefire in Lebanon be included in the Memorandum of Understanding before opening the strait, aiming to tie regional stability to the resolution of the Gulf crisis. Israel, citing ongoing attacks, continued airstrikes, and expanded ground operations in Lebanon to protect its northern border. The U.S., balancing deterrence and engagement, stressed its commitment to both regional allies and the broader principle of freedom of navigation. Every round of negotiations risked being derailed by events on the ground. Yet both the U.S. and Iran resisted breaking off talks. The alternatives, escalation, further market shocks, and the risk of a wider war, loomed too large. The stakes were not just regional, but global. The Strait of Hormuz remained mostly closed, oil prices soared, and the world's economic lifeline dangled in uncertainty. The events of May 2026 reveal the limits and necessity of diplomacy under fire. In a region where power, prestige, and security are so deeply entwined, no solution comes easily. But as ceasefires are tested and tempers flare, the ability to keep adversaries at the negotiating table, however imperfectly, remains the world's best hope to avert catastrophe. Global stability, for now, rests on the fragile endurance of dialogue over force. The stories that define tomorrow are already unfolding today. Subscribe to Today in Context for clear, grounded analysis of the events shaping our world, one story at a time.